Good afternoon. Thank you for everyone that has been able to join in for this session today. It's a Unite Representatives update on the NHS Job Evaluation Scheme. And today we're going to focus on the issue of how to write a job description. Some of you may have attended the first session that we did, I think it was about 2 months ago. At that session, we focused on a brand new annex that had just been released, Annex 31. And during that session and the conversations that happened afterwards, we kind of promised that we would do a few more of these sessions. And it came out that writing a job description or how best to write a job description might be a good one for a second session. And after today, we'll be thinking about a third session. So it would be great if people have got feedback in terms of any areas that they want to concentrate on when it comes to Agenda for Change. Just to introduce myself, I'm Dave Munday. I'm one of the lead professional officers with Unite the Union in the health sector. I lead on regulation and mental health, but I also have some involvement with the work that the union does around Agenda for Change, especially on some of the non-pay work stuff that happened a year ago or so. And I've continued that work, which has looked at things like renewing the job evaluation scheme, making sure that it's being well implemented locally. I'm sure you'll all agree there are lots of interesting issues that come up around how Agenda for Change is implemented, and it's really, really important that we get that right. So, one of the elements of the work that we're doing nationally is to really focus on that. You've also seen and heard Paul Smith speak today. He is the Unite lead on the Job Evaluation Group, which is a national partnership group, a subgroup of the NHS Staff Council, and they kind of have lead responsibility for the maintenance of the job evaluation scheme, Agenda for Change, in the UK. Paul is going to listen along to the presentation, but then may well join in with some of the question and answers afterwards. Just to explain that we've got, I think it's about 15 or 16 slides to go through that sort of, covers the meat of today's sort of conversation. What I would say is if any questions come up whilst I'm speaking, you've got a couple of options. One is to kind of keep it in your mind. The other one is if you want to type it into the chat function, and we'll look at those at the end and hopefully answer everyone's question that we've got. I am recording today's session. That is so we can put it on the website after today, and that's really helpful, obviously, for people that weren't able to attend. So what I would say is, obviously, don't sort of like say anything during this first part, because then you'll be included on the recording. I won't be sharing the recording of the question and answer session with on our website. Hopefully that all makes sense. And without further ado, let's go into today's presentation. So like I say, just a bit of an introduction. Second webinar that we've done. The first was on Annex 31. If you missed out on that, you can still watch it and read the information on our website. And like I say, following the feedback that we had after the first session, this session today is looking at writing a job description specifically focused on what's needed for the NHS Job Evaluation Scheme job evaluation purposes. So I'm not going to go into kind of, if you want to write a job description for any other employer, these are the things to consider, because that's not something that we're covering today. We're very much focusing on NHS employers. And the stuff that I'm sharing with you today is based on a piece of work that NHS employers led, where they did a document that looked at writing successful job descriptions. So if you kind of turned this off and just went and read that, you'd probably be getting similar information. But hopefully it's really helpful to have it kind of spoken through in this kind of way. So what is a job description? It's an essential document for every position in the NHS, and it's needed to fulfill several purposes for recruitment, for job evaluation, and for performance management. You'll be unsurprised to hear that today we'll be focusing on the second of these for job evaluation in the NHS Job Evaluation Scheme. And the job evaluation scheme, it measures the skills, responsibilities, and effort required for a job in order to allocate it to the correct pay band. It uses consistent criteria across the wide range of NHS jobs for those that are under AfC in order to ensure pay parity and avoid equal pay challenges. We're not going to go into massive detail today about how AfC works. Either you know that already, and therefore I'd be kind of teaching you stuff that you don't need to know, or you're not aware of it yet and you're going to join in with future sessions where we maybe will focus on that in a bit more detail. But just to say that Agenda for Change came about because there were quite a lot of examples across the NHS where one group of staff was getting paid more or less than another group of staff. It could be argued that both groups of staff were doing similar things, and often the difference was one group was a group of men and one group was a group of women. There was some pay challenges that happened back then, and that sort of unleashed the need to have a scheme that came in that would pay equal pay for equal value of work. So to return to what is a job description, trained job evaluation panelists use agreed job information when undertaking job evaluation or matching to national profiles. And part of this information is an agreed job description that gives sufficient information to the panel to understand the responsibilities of the job and the skills required to do it. So just going a bit further, therefore, the job description considered by a JE panel needs to describe the skills and responsibilities needed to perform the role, define where the role fits in within the overall company/organisation hierarchy. It needs to outline the types of activities a post holder is expected to do and decisions they may need to make, and outline the autonomy a post holder has in undertaking the duties required by the role. Whilst the job description is a key document for job evaluation, it does not need to be written to follow and give information on each of the 16 factors of the NHS Job Evaluation Scheme. And actually, where people do that, it's not doing the job that a job description should be doing. It's kind of, you could consider it kind of cheating to try and get a particular outcome when it comes to the job evaluation scheme processes. So just to emphasize, national job profiles are not job descriptions. So national profiles are something that we use as part of the Agenda for Change scheme. And job descriptions do not need to look like a national profile. And actually, we'd probably say that they shouldn't. So just looking at some of the keys to writing a successful job description. Do not use words and phrases taken straight from the NHS Job Evaluation Handbook or National Job Evaluation Profiles. Many of the phrases that are used in profiles and the factor plans are defined within the NHS Job Evaluation Handbook and may not make sense by themselves in a job description. So, for example, you could have you have to have highly complex communication skills. Whilst as a job evaluation person, you can understand what that means and be able to score appropriately in partnership with other people, it doesn't belong in a job description. It doesn't help in a job description. So a job description describes a role while the JE profile is used for analysing the information on the JD, and therefore it should not be the same. So where the language is the same as the JE profile, the JD job description is likely to be rejected by any panels that are reviewing it. However, you can look at profiles to get an idea about the expectations and differentiation between profiles at different bands. There are some factors that would not be expected to be covered in a JD, such as effort factors, and there is provision for collecting that information in the NHS Job Evaluation Handbook, and they give examples, for example, either by using partnership job analysts or by agreeing a pro forma for the job holder and their line manager to complete. So line managers writing or reviewing job descriptions are encouraged to work with their organisation's job evaluation leads, and they will be able to ensure that the contents of the JD are clear for job matching purposes. So again, whilst job descriptions shouldn't sort of mirror and match what happens in the job evaluation scheme, it is good to understand how the two processes work and to kind of have some understanding of both. Job evaluation and matching panels also consider the person specification drawn up for recruitment purposes. However, panelists need to be aware that the main purpose of the person spec is recruitment and to assess the skills and experience necessary to recruit someone into the role and to assist with shortlisting. JE measures the role, not the person in the role. So panels need to take care when assessing skills and knowledge where this needs to be learned on the job and is not stated as an essential criteria. In some roles, qualifications are necessary in order to register to practice, but for many roles, there will be alternative ways of showing competence. And that is really important and certainly comes across in some of the issues that we see when we look at where job evaluation hasn't gone quite right. So the information that NHS employers shares just highlights some of this again. So job descriptions considered by a job evaluation panel needs to describe the skills and responsibilities needed to perform the role, outline the types of activities a post holder is expected to do and decisions they may need to make, outline the autonomy a post holder has in undertaking the duties required by the role, not use words and phrases taken straight from the NHS Job Evaluation Handbook that require a definition, define where the job fits within the overall company hierarchy, and not look like a national job profile. I'll pause there for a sec. Just if you can all make sure you're on mute, we're getting some comments coming through from someone's workplace, possibly. So if you just pop your microphones on mute. Now we're going to cover some top tips. So ensure the job title is correct. And whilst we certainly shouldn't sort of just focus on a job title, it is important that job titles on job descriptions sort of do what it says on the tin. So the first important element of a JD is the job title. It's what people see first. And it's certainly what people will search for when they're looking for jobs in their local area. It should have the following qualities. So it should accurately reflect the nature of the job and the duties performed. It reflects its ranking order within other jobs. It's free of gender or age implications. Obviously, it shouldn't be looking at trying to kind of suggest that the job would be more appropriate for a particular gender or for someone of a particular age. And it is self-explanatory for recruitment purposes. In most online job searches, the job title, as I said before, is the main keyword searched for, so it's really important. The other thing that is also important that the NHS employers hasn't sort of included in their guidance is things like it shouldn't kind of suggest that it's doing something that it isn't. And one of the examples that's come up previously is things like putting nurse in job titles that don't require a registered nurse to do them. It's important that it doesn't kind of mislead either the people applying or the public as to kind of what the job requirement is. Another top tip, describe what the service needs, not what you want. So never write a job description with a person in mind. The most important aspect of a JD is that it reflects what the service needs. I'm sure there will be some managers that do have the person in mind that they want and may write, focused on that person. They shouldn't be doing that. Obviously, they shouldn't have the person in mind in itself, but they shouldn't be writing a job description for one individual. Describe the main purpose of the job. This should be the essence of the role. For example, to provide HR advice to managers. So just concentrate on the main reason for the job existing, and you will be able to add specific tasks and responsibilities in, following sections on the job description. So another tip, set out the main tasks and responsibilities clearly and factually. So the job description should contain a list of duties and responsibilities associated with the role. You could indicate the amount of time expected to be dedicated to each task, which should be represented as a percentage, for example, filing 20%, data entry 40%, etc. Descriptions of duties should be no more than 2 or 3 sentences in length and should be outcome based, containing an action, an object, and a purpose. So they give the example, compiles monthly reports to allow monitoring of the department's budget. Use examples to illustrate where possible, make sure responsibilities are relevant. The list of duties and responsibilities will vary in length, but as a rule should be as short as possible. Otherwise, the document becomes an operational manual rather than a job description. And obviously, no one wants that. Keep it factual and do not repeat tasks, responsibilities. And again, avoid gender specific or discriminatory language. And it's probably helpful to get someone from outside of the job area to review the one that has been done, because they may sort of be able to pick up on any errors, omissions, problems with it, where you're kind of, very much focused on knowing the profession that you're going to recruit for example, exactly knowing how the people in that profession would write it. It maybe could be useful to get that outside sort of input in terms of the job description that you've written. Include an organisational structure chart and set out who the job holder reports to and who reports to the job holder, as well as being helpful for a job evaluation panel to understand how departments are structured and how roles are interfaced. It also confirms to prospective candidates where their job will sit in the service department. And that is really important. We often find that there can be problems where, it's not quite clear who you report to, who reports to you. And so job descriptions are a good opportunity to express that. And if you can't express it in the job description, maybe there's something at play that you need to address in the workplace as well. Do not ask for years of experience. Asking for many years of experience may fall foul of both age discrimination and gender discrimination law, as it could prevent younger people and women from applying for certain jobs. So that's important. Instead of specifying years of experience or service, which is time-based, so potentially indirectly age discriminatory, employers should specify the type, breadth, or level of experience needed for the particular job and the skills and competencies required. And I know sometimes we find this difficult in the NHS. It's important to use plain English. Remember to use straightforward phrases and sentences, avoid abbreviations, and always explain what you mean by your terminology. And again, whilst you might think, well, we want to recruit a particular person to this role, so why do we need to do that? It is helpful to have roles that are really expressed well in job descriptions, not only in terms of, for example, things like the job evaluation process, but also other people looking at the organisation and seeing what people do and why they do it. It can be helpful in that respect too. I just wanted to focus on a particular issue that comes up over the next two slides. This is around advice from the Job Evaluation Group for NHS employers recruiting jobs defined or described by other organisations. So this following advice was produced by JEG to support employers when using a JD that's been developed and banded by another organisation. And they give three examples where this could happen. Using a job description written by a neighbouring NHS body, using a template job description from a national career framework, and using job descriptions written to support a national programme delivery. So in all these situations, the employer must ensure that they are satisfied and can prove that the job matches to a national profile or evaluates at the stated band, and the outcome is consistent with other jobs within that employer, and they have an audit trail demonstrating that the pay band can be justified. So they should do this by undertaking a matching or evaluation using a partnership panel of trained job practitioners, following the process outlined in the NHS Job Evaluation Handbook, so the same as any other job in that employer. After recruitment, should employers adapt or alter the job description that's kind of been written elsewhere, they should review the job evaluation outcome as soon as possible. And importantly, employers should ensure they have a robust job evaluation audit trail for the banding outcomes attributed to the job descriptions used locally. Employers should not rely on banding outcomes determined by other organisations. Using job information from other sources does not mean that employers are absolved of legal responsibility for matching and consistency checking the posts. And where a national NHS body has engaged with the JEG for advice and support, JEG might undertake a mapping exercise to suggest what an indicative banding for the job description might be. This mapping process is not a full job evaluation, and as such, a local employer will still need to undertake their own local job evaluation to ensure that they meet their legal responsibility for ensuring equal pay. And actually, we come across a few examples of this where it goes wrong. One of the examples that Unite's raised previously is on CAPS, which is Clinical Associate Psychologists. It was a job that was kind of developed in partnership between a few different bodies nationally. They came up with a bit of a standard job description, and that standard job description was then evaluated by local areas. What was interesting was we know that some of the areas got that evaluation wrong, and then that wrong evaluation appears to have kind of bled across to other employers because they said, well, that trust gave it this, so we'll give it this. And again, if that had properly been evaluated, there would have been recognition that it was an unsafe decision. And one of the reasons we know that particular example was an unsafe decision was that CAPS demands that employees have to have a master's qualification, which for those that know job evaluation really well will know would come out as a minimum as level 7 on factor 2, but in several organisations they were given a level 6 on factor 2, which is just quite clearly wrong. So I just wanted to kind of finish with a couple of slides that talks about why does this matter. So I've put accurate job description should more likely lead to safe and correct initial agenda for change outcomes. Now, I've put should and more likely because if you've got the best written job description in the world, if your agenda for change matching or evaluation process is deficient, then it will not be saved by an accurate job description. But conversely, if you have got an amazing AfC process done in partnership, always comes to the right outcomes. If the job description is wrong, then it will very much likely to lead to unsafe, incorrect outcomes. And I suppose it shows that the bit about it's kind of like it's a collective thing, isn't it? That we need this to be right for that bit to be right, and if one of them is wrong, then the other being right is becomes a bit of an irrelevance. Also, the NHS Terms and Conditions of Service Handbook demands that job descriptions are accurate, and it says in well, I've highlighted here two examples in Annex 31, which is the brand new annex that was introduced a few months ago, and we did the first session on. Section 18, which talks about the line managers expected to do. Line managers are expected to work with staff to keep the job descriptions for roles under their management up to date and relevant, and ideally annually, but at least every 3 years. Annex 31 also says, in terms of the staff right, Section 19, staff have the right to an up-to-date job description that reflects the full requirements of their role, and that this is reviewed at least every 3 years. Maybe for some of you kind of sat virtually around the table, you'd be thinking, gosh, my job description, colleagues' job descriptions haven't been updated for tens of years. You know, part of the reason Annex 31 was needed was to really kind of challenge this process that organisations need to be much more thoughtful about having up-to-date 3-yearly at least reviewed job descriptions. Another example of why does this matter? The NHS Job Evaluation Handbook demands it, and I've just highlighted 3 areas where this is either mentioned or is important. So chapter 10 of the JE Handbook talks about job descriptions and other information specifically. So that's a good place to go after today's session if you want to just remind yourself of this in brief and what's required of job descriptions. There's also a couple of sections in chapter 3 of the JE Handbook that are really important. One of them is re-evaluation of changed jobs. So if you're sat in your job, have been doing it for a period of time, and you believe that your job has changed, so needs to be re-evaluated, it says under section 4.2 to make a request for re-evaluation or rematch, the post holder must submit either an amended agreed job description or agreed evidence showing which skills and responsibilities applicable to the post have changed. They should also provide details of the changed job demands that have led them to believe there is a change in factor levels. And note, it is advised that job descriptions are kept up to date with all changes, whether they're deemed significant or not. So again, this, really emphasizing that point, not only about the importance of the job description being good when a post starts, but also it needs to be a living document that is updated that reflects the requirements of the role. And when it comes to employees believing that their job may have developed and may result in a different pay band, the accuracy and the applicability of the job description is really important. And again, that's one of the reasons that we're focusing on this subject today, that what we're expecting is, with the advent of Annex 31 and the encouragement for employees to be cognizant of the fact that job descriptions should be updated at least every 3 years, that people will be actively doing this work at the moment, reviewing their job descriptions. So hopefully you can think about the lessons learned from today's session and you can apply that learning to encouraging that your employer does a good job on the job description. Probably also helpful to say at this point that job descriptions can become contested. And again, how you deal with that contest locally is important. So, it should be something that's agreed between the job holder and the manager. Sometimes employers dispute who the manager is and who has the responsibility to sign off a job description. Again, it should be for the employer to make that decision, but obviously where that's contested, we can think about what we need to do locally. And where we'd hope, all employees would find that this experience goes without a hitch, we expect it not to go as well in all situations, because obviously getting this bit right can lead to claims for more pay down the line. And we know that organisations don't always enjoy that or want to kind of support that happening. Another thing that the job evaluation handbook talks about is new jobs. So that's where an organisation creates a new job that has never been done before. Again, it's covered in Chapter 3, Section 5.3. And what it says is, after recruitment, the organisation should allow a reasonable period of time for the job to bed down. And this may vary according to the nature of the job. Some posts may need a period of a few months, while others may be subject to seasonal variations requiring a full year to determine the full job demands. Once the full demands of the post are clear, the post holder and their manager should review the job description, and if any changes are made to it, the job evaluation outcome must be reassessed using the matching or evaluation procedure as appropriate. So again, just to kind of emphasize that when no one's doing a job, a manager creates a job, they should be writing a job description. Won't be in partnership, or it's unlikely to be in partnership because there's no post holder to do it in partnership with. It could be that other people are involved who might be interested in the job, but it won't be the person that is doing it at that point in time. It's important that once that job has bedded down, that job description is reviewed earlier. So it shouldn't be that, well, we have to wait 3 years because 3 years is what something says somewhere. We've already said it doesn't have to be, it's maximum of 3 years, but it's a really important point. So that is the extent of the session in terms of delivering slides to people today. But obviously, hopefully, a conversation can now ensue. If people have got any questions, then we can obviously cover them. But I am going to stop sharing the screen so we can see everyone. And just to say again, this is where the recorded session will finish. And we won't share this bit online. We might share the kind of like the questions that are asked and the answers, but not who asked them and anything of particular.